What is this, Halloween? Today we are going to talk about how to run vampires in the modern day and age. Hello everyone, welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire, here with the Quick Tips for DMs episode today talking about how to run vampires, not just for the modern age, but for whatever game setting you might be playing in, whether you're sticking purely fantasy in Faerun for 5th edition D&D, or wandering around in the worlds of Pathfinder, or if you've decided to homebrew those up into their modern day and age counterparts, or again, D20 Modern, or Rollmaster, or whether you're playing Shadowrun. Vampires are present in all of these games, but they have a bad habit of just kind of turning into another faceless minion, a slightly greater undead threat for the players to triumph against, or become its next set of vampire spawn. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on just such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. Now we'll start talking about vampires a little bit more and just giving them a little bit more than just the another minion kind of feel. And really, you don't have to do much more than read some of the notes and excerpts and thoughts by the creators of Strahd von Zarovich from The Curse of Strahd, legendary vampire lord of Ravenloft. Vampires are supposed to be these tragic figures. I mean, you take a look at Dracula. Dracula's entirely tragic. It's completely sad what happened to him in Bram Stoker's novel. You know, it does nothing from stopping you from thinking, yeah, that guy needs a stake in his heart and to be rolled into a river. But still, it's like you can't help but feel for them. And I really think bringing just that touch of the same to your own vampires is incredibly useful. It's much more characterizing. I mean, your characters don't have to pull a Tanjiro and start feeling what the thing they've just killed is feeling in their last moments. No, you don't need to go that far. Not everything needs to be a heart-wrenching sob story, but letting them have personality, have a voice, giving that to them can really up the stakes just a little bit, even if it's just a matter of presentation and whether or not the players remember them afterwards. Ultimately, that's what you want. You want them to have fun, have good memories of this game setting. So, giving a name and a little bit of a personality to a vampire can be incredibly useful. Also, vampires, by their nature, should just be relatively rare. I mean, you know, if you're going Vampire the Masquerade, you know, if you're taking notes from that, sure, you're going to have vampire clans with a significant number of them and their own ghouls and the like, and many other potential child hurt in their sights and in the crosshairs for potentially being recruited into the clan. But the embrace is something that is only ever carefully given, and if it's not done with all the proper check marks and approvals by the different reigning authorities, what if it's the city's prince or sheriff or whoever, both the sire and the childer are going to be put to death in whatever manner is deemed most appropriate, just because it risks breaking the masquerade. Because however numerous the children of Cain might be, everybody else in the rest of the world, you know, 9 billion people, I mean, sure, a vampire might be badass enough to be able to take on 1,000 people, but there's plenty more where that came from afterwards. So they have to be careful. They have to exercise caution. Even if they're centuries old, they have to be so careful. The lessons of the Inquisition taught them that very well, and they hold those lessons very dearly. Not everybody agrees. You have the Sabbat, you have the Anarchs, you have so many different other little factions that kind of spring up. You got werewolves, because believe it or not, vampires are not the highest thing on the totem pole in the White Wolf line of games. They are they're not bottom rung, but they're not tangling with a werewolf successfully and living. Not reliably anyways. So, you just bring that little bit of thought and personality to your vampires depending on how numerous you want to make them. You can make their clans have particular little traits and peculiarities that make them just stand out and be very distinct. And that means you can also have room to homebrew with some of their general qualities. They in D20 Modern, they have the ability to assume the alternate form of a bat, a wolf, any number of different creatures. They all have gaseous forms, whether it's D&D, D20 Modern, or Pathfinder. They're able to assume a mist-like form in order to get into places or to leave or to escape. In some settings, they do have to be invited into your home in order to actually make it in there. So you can play around with some of these different weaknesses and traits and really begin to make them feel distinct all over again. You can lower their strength overall, but boost their charisma. Just have them have that sense of charm and domination through their guile and words, as well as powerful magics based off of their force of personality, much like a bard is. You have so many different options at your beck and call and at your disposal, and I promise you, doing just a little bit of extra work with vampires can make them just a bit more memorable. Even if sometimes your players are just going to skip right over it and not really pay attention, you can still bring it up later, because even though vampires, as the decades and even centuries roll on, they become more and more disconnected from what it was to be human, because they just fundamentally don't have that life anymore. You get used to some people. You get used to having certain figures around. So sure, maybe that Damien vampire, he was only around about 3 decades, but man, that's 3 decades of getting to know somebody, actually start to get to know somebody. And you know what? I kind of liked him, and to top it off, I sired him. He was from my clan. These guys are going to have a big problem when I find them. That kind of a thing. Granted, I didn't exercise that with the full force of personality or fury or indignation, depending on how you want to play the character. You still just have so much more with that. You have little things that can crop up where the players go, wait, that guy had a name? We didn't really bother to check. And then they can really role play that out a little bit further, just really rubbing salt into the wound, as it were, as the players just kind of, oh yeah, sorry about that, want to join them, kind of a thing. There's so many different ways to go about it, and now I'm rambling around in circles, so we're going to cut it off there before I make this into a 20-minute video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Do you agree overall, or do you think vampires are fine as just regular run-of-the-mill minions? It does depend a bit on the game that you're playing, but really feels like vampires should be something that feel a bit unique and special when your players do come across them, like they should have a personality and a history. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll engage in discussion. And remember, if you haven't done so already, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.